The following is a breakdown of my demo reel. Engine 2317. The first segment is of a train done entirely in Houdini and composited using Nuke. The train and environment were modeled in Houdini by myself over the course of summer 2006 while in Vancouver Film School. Modeling was procedural, done mostly with polygons. Animation was almost entirely expression-driven. The wheels and moving components were chops-driven over time. The foliage, trees, and bushes were simply done using an alpha mass targa placed on a grid and positioned towards the camera. The grass was made by placing an expression in a bensop and copy stamping it into the environment. A shader was applied then to it to cut down on the render time. Water was created using particles with tubes copied to them, and the blur created using the velocity point attribute. There are 8 custom Vex shaders, 3 layers for rocks, 3 metals, and 2 shaders on the tracks, 1 shiny and 1 steel-like for the top of the tracks and the rusty shader for the sides. The steam of the engine is an expression through the pop net and birth when it reaches its designated frame by using a clamp expression. To save on render time, the steam was achieved by using sprites with a velocity blur added. Next is the incense and cigarette. These are both variations on the same theme. Both the incense and the cigarette were generated using an extrapolated poly from the pop network. The particles were birthed and set up in the pop net and were then skinned on the SOP level, then shaded with an X-ray shader. Both contain shaders with expressions controlling the luminosity of the supermaterial to create a flicker. The cigarette burns down using a sweep appended to a fractal over $F, creating a jagged edge. The cigarette was composited in Nuke. Next is the snowstorm. This was a simple particle project with small grids copied onto a pop net. The background is a summer to winter done in Photoshop, and the clouds are still images layered and then animated in After Effects. The shower was done entirely in Houdini as a particles project for Portfolio 2 at SCAD. It was created using 2 pop nets. The first pop net is killed when it hits the wall, and at that point a second one bursts, creating the waterfall down the shower. Next is the Griffith Park fire, which was inspired by events that happened recently. Smoke is generated using a pop net and sprites, and the fire is an X-ray shader on a pop net composited in After Effects. Ice fracture is a fracture extruded grid is parented to a pop net with gravity applied. This was also composited with After Effects. This segment is particles orbiting a sphere with a few different shaders applied. The colors come from a random color generated in the pop network. As the particles are birthed, depending on when they're birthed, they show off a different color. Next is the day to night. This is a matte painting done in Photoshop. The final compositing was done in Shake. The fire element was rendered in Houdini. The flickering was added using a mask and a luma key in Shake. Finally, the Roundhouse project. This is the only piece modeled in Maya. This is a recreation of a real place in Savannah, Georgia at the Roundhouse Train Museum. Lighting was done using HDR. This was done by taking a picture off of a chrome ball and then re-extrapolating it into Maya to set the lights. The final composite was done in Shake. All the textures are custom textures done in Photoshop.